I am not convinced. I already know how this game is played. The writers think they can pull the wool over mine eyes, but I say nay. But also at the same time, I'm just as confused as you, but mostly about different things. Hello, my little filmer dudes. My name is Montero, and thank you for joining me on my journey to watch every TV show ever. Not really, but we are gonna get close. Welcome back to our Let's Solve Only Murders in the Building Season 4. And I think I am correct. It is very hot in here. So many lights. I'm wearing so many things. Turn the air on. Here's the thing, my little filmer dudes and super sleuths. I am not convinced that Charles was the intended target this whole time. I know episode 2 makes it look like that he might be, but I don't buy it. For one, that would be way too obvious. Plus, we already know the intention for Only Murders in the Building is for it to have 5 seasons. So it seems a little odd that they're doing a who's out to get Charles this early, unless I'm wrong and they are doing it this early. It just seems a little weird, and also unless that means that my theory about the final season is true, that Charles will end up being the killer and /or might also kill one of them just because he wants to be part of the gang and he's gonna try to help solve the murder. But he's the culprit. This episode also laid it on with 5 cc's of thick that perhaps Charles was the intended target instead of Sazz. Now remember from my video from last week, Sazz had to have been the intended target because the killer knew Sazz's work schedule. They knew so very specifically that Sazz was going to be a double for Scott Bakula on Scott's pilot. I don't know about you, but this sounds a little personal to me. Sazz was on the verge of uncovering something, and even Jan said in this episode that Sazz had been theorizing a number of different things about the Arconia and that there might have been another murderer in the building. Oh my. But could Sazz have been talking out of paranoia because of all of the murdering that's been happening in the past 4 to 5 years? 3 to 4 years? I think so. I still believe the murderer wants Charles and the crew to believe that Charles was the intended target. Why? Because it's the perfect cover-up, obviously. It's the perfect way to throw everyone off the scent of your original target, Sazz. Whoever murdered Sazz did a wonderful job at covering this up beautifully. Sazz got murdered because she knew something about Charles. My guess it has something to do with his career and finances. I think Sazz was just onto the wrong thing at the wrong time and she got murdered. In any case, I personally think that she is still the intended target and it's just made out to look like it's Charles. That's my theory. I'm not buying that Charles was the intended target the whole time. However, could Charles still be a potential target? Oh yes, very much so. I'm rewatching this from season 1 and on rewatch, it really, upon rewatch, the whole series really does change perspective a little bit. Once you know what you know from the rest of this season, some things like, oh, I don't know, the amount of people disliking Charles and wanting his death is mentioned in season 1 in just 3 episodes, mind you. It's a little insane. I don't know if they stand out to me because that's on the forefront of my mind for this season, but day okay, so let's talk about that blood message. Let's just say that this was her message, but as a graphic designer, I know there's a but. There's always a but as a graphic designer who works a lot with typography and branding and logo designs and on all of that such, there's just something off. All of the letters in TAP and specifically N. See, when Sazz was forming the blood message in season 3, she started from the top going down, and there's a little tiny, I thought there was a little curve that we could maybe infer from it. However, and according to this pattern, this is telling me the cross of the T should have been made first, and that little swoop at the bottom would have also been made first. That stick is telling me that it was drawn last because it was drawn right on top. Any artist, any painter would know upon looking at this that the stick of that T was made last. Yet Sazz was, she started going top down. Maybe she was starting with the word in or N or A or P. But why? I don't buy it. Maybe this message isn't necessarily Sazz's message. Maybe, I don't know, is it too complex? Is it too far-fetched to believe that perhaps the killer preemptively knew? Again, if this is personal, if this is so insanely personal for Sazz, of course would know Charles's famous phrase, tap in, because it would be on that documentary. They would know because of it. And so wild theory. Maybe this message is not hers because there's something off about it. I don't quite believe it. But I think that message was written if it's personal, then I mean, kind of hats off to the killer maybe for going this elaborate. I don't know. I could just be crazy, but my 4-year degree is yelling at me. Where am I? Here I am. I went off the cuff a little bit. All right, so episode 2 clues. We're hopefully gonna speed through these, but probably not. Like I mentioned last week, gotta pay attention to those recaps. I did not this time because this episode opens with a recap that mentions Jan, and I should have known. I should have known that Jan would appear. A lot of people were theorizing that potentially Jan could have been the murderer for Sazz, and maybe they broke up and that Jan had Sazz killed because of it. I didn't like that theory, and it looks like that theory is false. I can also see that potentially people are going to say that Jan is in on it anyway, that she is there to plant the seeds into Charles, but I don't think that's the case. I think she is there to plant the seeds into us, that is what the case may be. I think the writers having Jan come out from Brazzos' own closet, nice, to do some janning around and help point Charles in the logical but false direction, and then fled the scene in the secret passageways in Charles's closet. What a fun cameo. Honestly, I love Jan. I would get so much more of Jan. She's crazy. I feel like Jan and I would honestly would be friends. It caused me a little concern with how much I guess I would trust people. Listen. Back to the point. I don't think this is the last we've seen of Jan. I think we're gonna for sure see at least 2 more episodes, maybe like 3 episodes total throughout the season of Jan. I think she's gonna appear twice more. But she's not a suspect. She's not a suspect. But speaking of the secret passageways, I've always found it dumb that the trio would say that there are secret passageways in the Arconia in their podcast and just do nothing about it, or at least the Arconia would do nothing about it, even though there was already one murderer going through those secret passageways, murdering. Twice, I think twice. Was it twice? I don't remember. Point is, gotta get rid of those, gotta seal those up, because lo and behold, that's how Jan came in. And again, I don't think that's on accident. I think the writers did that to let us know that, there is a secret passageway, there is more ways that the murderer could have come in. So, because I mean, listen, if Charles was the real target, then why wait a whole ass week and a half to try again? If there even is another attempt on the way, we don't know. So far there hasn't been. So again, so that tells me that Sazz was the target the whole time. Do you know how many times Charles walked by, ate at, sat near, drank at, and God knows what else by that window? If one of those Westeis were the snipers, if anyone was a sniper, why wait to do it again? Because if you had to snipe him again, why not just snipe him? And I don't know, it just does not make sense for Charles to be the target in this way. The killer could have walked in, especially if they knew Charles, especially if they knew Sazz, they would know about those secret passages. So which is why I think maybe the killer maybe used the secret passages. Okay, maybe, listen, Oliver and Mabel think that the killer has Charles's keys because of Sazz, which I think is valid. It's a valid point, right? However, I think the killer never used the keys. I think the killer locked the door from the inside and escaped through the passageways. I think that's why Jan was used in this way to, again, the writers are trying to tell us, remember the passageways. If Charles were to be dead, he would have died by now. In this case, they just needed Charles to get out of the apartment so they could replace the window unbeknownst to any of them. Hence, getting them out to the Hollywood studio, but not from Bev frickin' Mellon, nah, but from Marshall, the screenwriter. which we're gonna talk about later. Okay, so this episode gave us 2 card game groups, which I found interesting. I don't think this is by accident. One group is a red herring, obviously, and the other group we have to look at. The first group is a group that we have to look at, and that group is the poker game group. This is the group that Sazz started for Charles way back at the start of season 1 of Brazzos in 1989, which we will also get back to in a little bit later. After that first encounter, this poker group met weekly because Sazz lied to them and told them that Charles invited them over for a poker game, which wasn't true. It made Charles some friends, and Charles really appreciated it. I liked that to touch. During this recalling of the poker group, Charles mentioned 2 names. He actually, well, not really 2 names, 2 people, 1 person and 1 name. The Grip and the guy with the big hair. And the guy with the big hair's name is Shmyong. And I tried to Google this name, and Google had a digital aneurysm because it couldn't find anything. So I DuckDuckGo'd it, and same digital aneurysm. No luck. This name, according to the internet, does not exist in any capacity, and we all know that whatever the internet says is absolute law. So this is more or less of a dead end, I think, but because I really don't want to be racist, and I don't care enough to study the German, Dutch, Sicilian, and many Asian dialects, just to deduce off which language this name could be based. But I already broke season 3, so I really don't need to do that again, even though I think this is it. This is it! But we're gonna leave it here until we have to revisit this. Until then, keep that poker group in mind. Mainly for Marshall, because of nepotism. Hollywood is a very nepotist industry. So if Marshall did have it out for Charles for any way whatsoever, this would be that connection. Marshall is likely a nepo baby and probably knows Charles via a father or an uncle of some kind, or a mother or an aunt of some kind. We don't know. But I think the OHEL group, which is the second group, is the writer's subtle way of telling us, you're on the right track, Ivan. You're so smart. To that I say, I don't need to be patronized, but I appreciate it. Now, if you recall, almost every season has a few not-its that are given to us pretty much right away with insanely compelling arguments that are mainly just wild assumptions until they are cleared up in the next episode or the second to next episode. Season 1 on rewatch is actually Howard, which I found hilarious because I do remember Howard was like on my list briefly, but he was always under Jan. As soon as Jan walked in that elevator, I said, yep, it's her. I don't really quite remember season 2, so when we get there, I will review. But season 3 had Kimber, played by the fantastic Ashley Park. And I think this season, it's the Sazz family and the pink eye guy, now known as the OHEL group. I think these guys are the first not-its of the season, other than Beb frickin' Melon. What Oliver and Mabel found in the Dudanoff apartment was merely just an apartment being used exactly how it appeared. Pig trafficking. I think the Sazz family deals with the black market pork, i.e. they get the freshest pork possible, an alive pig. They do the deeds themselves, and they reward themselves with a hearty meal. I'm just gonna stop. The Dudanoff apartment is basically their makeshift slaughterhouse Breaking Bad lab where they do the deed for the pig. And I think the 4 of them watching the trio at the window was only because they were concerned about the legalities of their activities. I mean, y'all, OMITB has me watching videos, crash course videos on ham radio, just so I can validate my theory, and you know what? It does! I got this information from Tech Quickie in their video, Amateur Radio, Ham Radio, as fast as possible, and boy, was it fast as possible. It's a really good video, you should check it out, because I'm not gonna be able to explain it very well, but basically, think of ham radio as like, also known as amateur radio, as like a gated community without very good security. You have to have a lease to be in this community, however, that's not stopping you from coming in and enjoying the benefits. You just, if you get caught, you might get slapped with a fine or jail time. Same thing with ham radio, and I am sure I just annoyed the heck out of some radio enthusiasts with that analogy, but it is the most basic for the basic people like me who don't understand radio. But yes, you have to have a license to use ham radio, but it would be really easy to create your own amateur radio and use it at your own risk. The only thing is, if you do get caught, you could get fined and or jail time. And the fine isn't small. It's like $17K starting, depending on the severity of whatever private party you done did crash. These radios are radios that you have seen in pretty much any disaster or apocalypse movie or monster movie. Modern example off the top of my head, A Quiet Place. A Quiet Place has these whenever they're in their basement. Pretty much any time they're like, hello, anyone can hear me. If you hear this message, go to these coordinates. It's that. It's that. Anyway, it really would make sense for the Westeis to be involved in some type of trafficking of live pigs from Portugal so that they can eat and benefit from illegal meat.
Why would you say that? Like, you put me in such an uncomfortable situation.
And they do this all through the Dudanoff window during the wee hours of the night.
That's a yikes, bro.
When no one can hear or see them using the ham radio because one, that's very much on brand, and two, this is just the type of illegal activity and more for it to happen on ham radio. This is my personal theory, so we'll see if I'm correct in a week or so. But listen, here's a question I want to pose to you. Where the heck is the rest of Sazz? I know that is a weird question to ask, but listen to me, my filmer dudes and super sleuths. There's something weird about the fact that there's only 2 Bulgarian bones in the incinerator, and there were 4 pictures of ligaments, x-rays, in Sazz's apartments as prize, as trophies. I went back, I saw a hand and I saw a hip. Where's the hand? Where's the hip? Where are they at? I saw a video that presented a strong case that Sazz could have perhaps faked her own death. But I don't know, it doesn't really fully line up. Where's the hip? Where's the hand? Or wrist? I didn't really catch what it was. But it seems odd, and it seems very dark, and I really don't like it. Someone clear this up for me, please. But speaking about watching videos, I don't know if Steve Martin Short, and Selena Gomez saw my video last year about season 3 and how it absolutely breaks the continuity of Only Murders in the Building just slightly with one line from Ben Glenroy. I was playing a teenager in my 30s. I broke the show and I had proof. You can check out the full video in the description below because I gave really good evidence on how that line doesn't line up with how old Ben Glenroy claimed to be for the first season of Brazzos and when Brazzos supposedly began. We never really had confirmation exactly when Brazzos aired, but I speculated that it began filming in 1988 and then started airing in 1989 all the way through 1990 for its first season. Well, in this week's episode, Charles remarks, "You think I was the target? That's preposterous. I was People Magazine's 8th most beloved TV cop," to which Oliver replied, in 1989. Charles responded with offense, which doesn't really help his case any. 91. 91! What does this exchange tell us? Well, through tones and intonations, and again, offenses taken, it tells us that Brazzos was indeed started in 1989, because otherwise why would Oliver get that specific? Plus, Charles was offended that Oliver got the year that Charles was in the magazine incorrect, not the year Brazzos started, because both he and Oliver would know when Brazzos aired from beginning to end. Everybody knows when that, even Selena Gomez's character Mabel, even Mabel knows when it aired. But now, actually everybody, thanks to me, solely and only me, we all know for sure, officially confirmed, I would say this is officially confirmed, that Brazzos season 1 began airing in fall of 1989 and thus ending roughly likely in May, spring 1999. 9 years, 9 seasons later, or well, 9 seasons total, right? Yes. Again, this is just going off of information from real life's longest live action TV sitcom of the 90s, Friends. Which also means it only took 2 seasons for Brazzos to really pick up nationally and take off. That's impressive if you ask me. Just saying, someone is lying about their age. So who do I think killed Sazz now? Well, we know my why. Now we just gotta figure out the who. It's always the who, isn't it? Well, it is. It's a whodunit. I'm still holding out for Marshall, the screenwriter, but after today's episode, I don't know. Melissa McCarthy's Charles' sister does seem a little bit more suspicious. I know she wasn't even really in this at all, but it kind of makes sense. I can't explain it, but it's there. Christmas All the Time guy is still also on my list, but after today's episode, I'm not really quite sure. I think he's also gonna be another red herring, but you know, maybe this episode intentionally avoided him. I'm also really intrigued to find out why this is Christmas All the Time guy. I mean, that would be me. I do love Christmas. I love me a good old jolly. Which is really kind of funny because I forgot that Kumail Nanjiani was actually also in Murderville on Netflix. Super funny, go watch it. I made a review on that so long ago. Good luck. But now it's 4 murder-related TV projects that Kumail Nanjiani by next year will have been a part of. It's so good. We for sure know he's going to be one of the murderers on Poker Face because that's a How Catch 'Em show. But would it not be out of the realm of possibility if he was a murderer in this one? Just because? Just saying. So what are my final thoughts? To me, this was a very touching episode with Charles essentially mourning the loss of his best friend and realizing his own mortality and his own vulnerability. The moments of him recalling working with Sazz and realizing how much she actually put herself out in the front lines essentially, and how much he took advantage of her and her friendship. Now that she's gone, he's unable to do anything about that. Jane Lynch nailed it this time. Even though she was just a figment of Charles' imagination of Sazz, she did that incredibly well. And seeing these 2 iconic actors, mainly comedic legends, perform in dramatic heavy scenes and do it so professionally and so empathically. There's a reason why Jane Lynch is a 5-time primetime Emmy winner, and that's just a start. The babe has so many nominations and awards and wins, and it's all deserving. And Steve Martin, what a treasure. What a treasure. Selena Gomez this episode really started to flourish, and I think it's because Mabel has suddenly found what makes her drive, protecting her family at all costs, plus solving a mystery while doing so. It's incredible to see Gomez's range finally be let loose, though very subtle. The past few seasons, I feel the writers didn't really know what to do with Mabel, mainly because season 1 was a very Mabel-focused season. So where do you go from there, right? It's hard. You don't want to ruin a really good character, but sometimes playing it safe for a long time can do just as much damage as being bold and being quick about it. What would you do with Mabel moving forward? Let me know in the comments below. But I feel her acknowledging her own lack of self-growth throughout this time and her stepping into this honestly almost maternal role for her boys is a surprising fit. And honestly, it's a little welcome, especially because Mabel knew exactly what Charles was going through this episode. Her look, her empathetic look, wow. Good job, Gomez. Mabel knew exactly what to do to help Charles cope with this. And I'm just excited to see where Mabel ends up at the end of season 4, because I mean, she got a lot of money from that deal. So is she and Howard gonna start their like pets podcast, or are they gonna do something else? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Oliver Putnam is also starting to come into his own, from his zany, wacky director self who would always put on a show no matter what, to a very level-headed and competent detective. Before, it was all about the podcast, it was all about the show, it was all about the movie, but now it's all about his best friend's life. And you can really see that change at the end of the episode when they realize the numbers for the Dudanoff combination turned upside down spell oh hell. A fantastic red herring, because they're not the murderers. That is it. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. My social media links are in the description below. I'm having a lot of fun with these. I cannot for the life of me get any of these to be shorter, but you know what? That is what we're here for. We're here to theorize and take however long we need to. With that being said, I do gotta go because I now have to edit it. Once again, my social media links are in the description below, and subscribe if you want to see more videos. We are going to do this weekly until the very end. So subscribe if you do want to see more, like the video if you liked it, and tell your friends. You have just been Montified.